So today we are continuing our year-long series of going further. Yeah, we're continuing our arrow series on how we're going further, and we're continuing to work through our values. So we started off the year with our first value, God first, and then brave, passionate, generous, and now we're on our fifth and final value, together. Okay, so that's what we're continuing to unpack today. How are we going to go further together? So we're looking at Matthew 8. So I'm just going to touch on the very beginning of Matthew 8. So together, how are we releasing each other? Okay, so Matthew 8. I'm going to get it on my phone. Hang on. Here we go. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, so this Matthew 8 follows straight after the Sermon on the Mount, okay? So when Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him, and a man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." Immediately, he was cleansed of his leprosy. And then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them." So we're just going to stop there. We're not going to go any further in Matthew 8. So the key things to me that stand out in that passage is that the man, the leper, came to Jesus, and he didn't say, "God, please, can you heal me?" He said, "Jesus, are you willing to clean me?" And Jesus said, "I am willing." And the difference in that question was not that it's not that he didn't believe, that he wasn't questioning Jesus' ability. He was questioning Jesus' character. Jesus, is this something that you want to do for me? Is this something that you want to do for me? Now, in the Bible, leprosy often refers to skin disease. Like nowadays, leprosy is a very specific skin disease, but in the Bible, it can be used interchangeably for general skin diseases. And if we look back at our favourite book of the Bible, Leviticus, everyone's favourite book of the Bible, yeah, no? It goes through all the rituals that skin disease, the implication that skin diseases that had on the person, okay? So if you had a skin disease, you had to dress a certain way. It says not to brush your hair, so your appearance was very clear that you were set apart and you were different to everybody else. You had to be outside the camp. Now, being outside the camp, that means outside of the community. You definitely weren't allowed in the most holy place within the community. So dressing different. You had to walk along the street and shout, "Unclean, unclean," just because if nobody had noticed, you made it extra clear that everybody just needed to take them few extra steps away from you, okay? So having leprosy was a really isolating and debilitating experience. It says in Leviticus 5 that also anybody with a skin disease, if anybody touched somebody with a skin disease, then they were then also unclean, and they had to go through a cleansing process in order to make themselves clean. So Jesus, in this moment, can see this leper in front of him. Jesus knows that however long he's had this disease, he's been isolated. Jesus knows that however long he's had this disease, people have completely avoided touching him. And Jesus knows that he can heal him just with his words. Jesus could say to him, "Be healed, be cleansed." But what did Jesus do? He reached out and touched the man. Because actually, it was, he needed to be cleansed, but that man needed that physical touch from another human being. It wasn't that it was, "Be healed." It was, "I'm here, be healed. We're together in this." It's more than just the healing of the disease. Jesus actually moved towards his uncleanness. Jesus took a step towards the thing that everybody else was so disgusted by. And leprosy, I was thinking, throughout the Bible, leprosy can be used as as a comparison to sin as well, because it was so loathsome. It was contagious. It was dirty, and so it makes a really good kind of image of what sin is. And so through this story, one of the first things I want to say is that no sin of yours is too big for God. No sin of yours is too dirty, too repulsive, or too disgusting to God, because God is bigger. There is absolutely nothing that you have done in your entire life that is not too big for God. Do you hear me? There is nothing, okay? It might be your deepest, darkest secret. God already knows, and he already loves you. Yeah? So there is nothing, church, that you can have done or do that is too much for God. But also I was thinking, this poor man didn't necessarily do something wrong. Maybe he was in contact with somebody, but he didn't necessarily do something wrong. This was something that he caught. This was something that he was around that then is on him. And so I was thinking, okay, so how do we catch diseases? There's several ways, obviously, we catch diseases. We catch diseases through being in direct contact or even indirect contact with other people, like airborne, saliva, bodily fluids. In contact with other people, we catch diseases. So if we're thinking about this leprosy as a way that isolates us from others, that isolates us from God, what stuff have we picked up directly or indirectly in our lives that are causing us to put these things in place that isolate us from other people? So I was thinking how indirectly and directly we catch stuff from other people is perhaps through past hurts, perhaps through relationships that maybe weren't so healthy or that we saw as healthy but caused us to engage and react and encounter each other in different ways. It could be from churches or prayer groups or different things that we're part of that have taught us how we engage with God, and that has kind of set our limitation and set our barrier and boxed in how we do relationship with God or how we do relationship with each other. Another way that we catch disease is through birth. So what things in our families, what things generationally have been passed down that we're still carrying, that we're still holding on to, and we're still seeing as, well, this is how we do things, this is how we interact, this is how far I'll go, and then that's it, because that's how I've always done things, that's how our family does things. Is there any things in our family that are a generational bond that history just keeps repeating itself? Them things, that's things that we carry around. That's our skin disease, our leprosy, if you were. Another way is like food and water. Diseases pass through what we eat and drink. So what things are we feeding on? What things are we eating? What things are we feeding our mind on? What things are we looking at? Are these things healthy? Are these things good? Or are these things causing us to keep ourselves at a distance from other people? Are these things causing us to kind of draw, to set ceilings on things or draw roof on things? So Jesus came to the leper and he cared for this guy physically. He cared for him physically. He cared for him emotionally. He cared for him spiritually. And he cared for him socially. Jesus cared for him in all areas of his life. He didn't just want to heal his skin disease. He wanted to heal his skin disease so he was free to engage with God and to engage in others in his community in all those areas. So I just want to say that God is not intimidated. God is not threatened by our baggage, by the way that we do things, by the ugliness that we carry inside us. And not only is God not intimidated, God actually takes a step closer to that. Yeah? God takes a step closer to our stuff. I heard this quote over the last few days, so I'm just going to read it to you. This is a quote by St. John. It says, "When you are praying alone and your spirit is dejected and you are wearied and oppressed by your loneliness, remember then, as always, that God the Trinity looks upon you with eyes brighter than the sun. Isn't that gorgeous? That when we are in that worst, darkest, loneliest, awful place, God looks at you and just says, oh, you're amazing. I love you so much. You are amazing. So I was thinking about, what has all of this got to do with releasing each other? What has all this got to do with let's go further with each other? Let's go further together. So I'm just going to share a little bit of my ugliness with you because I thought that's always fun, isn't it, for you? Not so much for me. Okay, so a little while ago, maybe within the last 6 months, I was on this kind of study day with work, and I was sat in this room, and the course had just started, and this woman like bursts into the room, and she's all a bluster, and she's like chatting away, and she's like, I'm so sorry, and like bustles in, and I was just like, oh, you're so annoying. You're so annoying. Just sit down. Shh. You're so annoying. And then I thought, make sure I don't sit next to her for the rest of the week. And then I just felt like God prompted me and be like, that's interesting, Kat. Where did that come from? You've completely ruled her out in literally 30 seconds of her walking into the room. What's annoying about her? And I was like, well, she did this, and she's, and that's just not how you behave, and that's not, and it just really felt God saying, no, that's not how you behave. And I was like, yeah, that's not how I behave, but I behave the right way, yeah? No, you behave differently. And actually, what about her was so wrong? And I just thought about it, it was like, actually, that's me, that's my stuff that I am putting onto her and saying, no, that's not okay, no, that's not good. And actually, I had completely ruled her out. I'd already decided I wasn't going to sit next to her. Every time she spoke, it was probably going to be annoying. And she probably didn't have anything good to say. But actually, by just processing that myself and thinking, I have limited you through me, so I need to sit down and deal with what's going on in me. And once I had thought that through and like apologized to God and looked at what was good, then she was great. And for the rest of the course, actually, she brought some really good insights. And she contributed really well, and she changed the group dynamic. And if I hadn't have dealt that stuff in me, I would have limited her for the whole of the course. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it was literally, she was probably unaware of the whole thing. It was nothing on her. She did nothing differently. It was me that needed to sort me in order to release her. Yeah? When I was a student midwife, I lived at home with my parents, and after a shift I would come home and be like saying to my mum, oh, this happened today, then this happened, and then I said this, and then they said this, and it was really, my mum would be like, really? Oh my goodness, oh, it sounds like you did the right thing, really encouraging, really building up, and I would just like process, get it all off my chest, done. Then I got married to Sam. And I would come home from work and I'd be like, oh my goodness, they said this. And then I said this. And so then, why did you say that? Was that the right thing to say? Oh, no. You don't understand. You're just meant to just like listen. Like, you just meant to like agree. He would say, well, is that the right thing? No. Of course I did the right thing. I'm the one that's telling the story. Listen. And it's that whole thing of, oh, actually, this is not as comfortable. My mum would just be like, yeah. And Sam would be like, that sounds like that person probably had a point. No. So then you either stop having those conversations and think, you don't understand. It was not me, it was them. Yeah? Whereas actually, that conversation was uncomfortable because that conversation was good. And I was thinking about actually when we kind of have friction and I was like thinking of like I don't know, like a washing machine, like when stuff hits against each other and bounces off each other and rubs, that's what causes things to be clean. It's not just that it sits in the water still that causes it to be clean. It's uncomfortable, it rubs, it bustles, it churns over. That's what brings the gold, and that's what brings the good stuff. So what are we going to do to release each other and stop saying the problems out there, the problems with them? I would be more successful if they weren't stopping me. I would be better if they weren't causing such problems. I would be happier, more complete, more satisfied, more whole if they weren't so, negative, controlling, limiting, stopping me. All those different things that we put out there, we're not called to sort out there. How many times in the Bible does it say, don't judge others, sort out the log in your own eye first? He who is without sin cast the first stone. God tells us again and again and again. We have no control out there, but we have control in here. So church, we want to go further in releasing each other. But in order to release each other, we need to come before God here and say, God, search me. What things am I blaming other people? What things am I not coming before you today and saying, God, what is my arrogance? What is my opinions? What are my decisions that I'm putting limits on other people? And that's all I want to say this morning. I think it would be really good just to have some worship and just take this time by ourselves. And this is a good thing to do daily, but this is a good thing to also do in the moments where feelings are brought up or opinions are brought up. And rather than going to those people, like my mum, that will be like, yeah, we need to get before God, or goes to those people who will challenge us and say, okay, so what's that saying about you, Kat? What's that saying about what's going on in you? Okay, so just as we maybe listen to some worship, if you want to just kind of get into space or close your eyes, or you can get on your knees, or you can just sit and just say, God, search me, because I don't want to be limited by all the lies that I'm telling myself that's going on out there. I want to be free.